Mozart and Einstein were two fine gentlemen that revolutionized their fields, but what if I told you that the way we tell their stories is causing children to fail at school?
40% of high school students have failing grades, you guys, 40%.
And college students to lose motivation.
College depression rates have doubled in the last 10 years.
All of that because of one term, genius. But to understand why the term is damaging to our society, we first need to go back to the very beginning. A baby. Being a baby is simple. All you have to do is learn and not die. If you fall down, that's okay. Everyone's going to encourage you to get back up and try again. If you spill something, sure, it might not be fun for the parent to clean up, but it's okay because you're still developing the motor skills that will help you navigate through life. But then you start school and things change. Life becomes not simply about learning anymore. You now need to keep up with others and prove how smart you are. That's when everyone gets divided into two groups, the good at school and the bad at school, which brings me to my first point. Nobody wins. Nobody wins when we call people geniuses. Now, for the non-gifted, it might be easy to understand why these people do not benefit from the labeling. But it turns out that even the students who are labeled geniuses do not benefit either. In the book Mindset, the psychologist Carol S. Dweck explains that when you praise a child for their innate abilities, you're telling them that intelligence is either something that they have or that they don't. And the whole reason they succeeded is not because of their hard work, but because they're smart. And this mindset can actually reduce someone's intelligence. In the book, the author describes an experiment conducted with hundreds of students. In the experiment, all students took 3 tests. The first test was moderately challenging, and most of them performed well. The students were then divided into 2 groups. For one group, the author praised their natural abilities, saying things like, "That's an excellent score, you must be smart at this." For the other group, she praised their efforts, stating, "That's an excellent score, you must have worked really hard." Next, the students were given a second test, which was much more difficult than the first one. Both groups scored lower on this test, but their responses differed. The group praised for their natural abilities became less confident and started to lose interest in solving the problems. On the other hand, the effort praised group enjoyed the challenge even more. Later, the author presented both groups with a third test, identical in difficulty to the first one. The students praised for their natural abilities, having lost all confidence, performed worse on this test compared to the effort praised group, who showed improvement in their scores. The results of this experiment suggest that the act of simply labeling someone and praising someone one way or the other can have a significant impact on their performance. So calling someone a genius doesn't help their performance. And the thing is that being a genius is not even a reliable predictor for success. Which brings me to my second point. In most domains, early performance does not equal future success. That is because it takes years of hard work to reach the top, even for geniuses. And yes, even child prodigy Mozart had to work extremely hard to achieve greatness. According to the book Peak, the first serious compositions that we can attribute to Wolfgang Mozart with certainty were written when he was 15 or 16, after more than a decade of serious practice under his father's tutelage. So maybe instead of trying to find the geniuses or the people with very good early performances, we should try to find people with a lot of drive and energy. Because if we look at some of the most successful people of all time, it seems pretty self-evident. Picasso created about 20,000 works. Freud had 330 publications. Edison obtained 1,093 patents. And this is true especially for sports. In one paper that I read, the author explains that since it is difficult to predict future performance based on physical characteristics and how good they are right now, it might be more productive to look at who's more driven instead. If one is able to predict who is more likely to meaningfully engage in intensive training for several years, then this might reflect a proxy of innate talent. So, what should we do instead? 3 things. Number 1 is to teach people that nothing is fixed. All knowledge can be expanded, every skills can be improved upon, and with enough effort, your brain can figuratively and literally grow. London taxi drivers are a great example of this. They spent so much time memorizing the city's street that their memory center, called the hippocampus, became larger.
London taxi drivers are this kind of very famous example of adult plasticity in the brain, and specifically adult plasticity in the hippocampus, which is the region that is one of the first to be impacted by the onset of Alzheimer's disease. And we're hoping that that will give us a better understanding of how this area grows before it's started to decline.
Simply explaining this idea to children can trigger reactions like the one from a child named Jimmy, who exclaimed, "So you mean I don't have to be dumb?" Jimmy then went on to improve his grades from C's and D's to B pluses. Number 2 is to teach children that grades don't define their natural abilities. They simply show the areas where they can get better. Getting a perfect score is great, but it doesn't leave a lot of room for improvement. On the other hand, getting 60% might suck and hurt your ego, but it leaves a lot of room for your brain to get bigger. For example, if you get 65% on the next time, you've shown progress and improved your ability. And lastly, the most important thing we can do is to create societal role models that are celebrated for their hard work and not just for their natural brilliance. When we focus solely on the genius of some individuals, it can demotivate others. A study discovered that college students who were exposed to studies about Thomas Edison were more motivated to work harder compared to those who learned about Einstein. So even if someone has exceptional intelligence, when we share their stories, we should emphasize on the hard work they put in to achieve their success, rather than solely attributing it to innate abilities, as is often done.